Right. Share the screen. And we'll get the roll. I really hate roll taking. I think in a college class, you know why. But nonetheless, it's state law, so we do it. I think the thing that bugs me the most is you have to log in each time because it only stays open for a short period of time. So some student last 2 hours, they figured out the solution. We're going to go all AI on this. So we'll just have a camera do facial recognition, call roll for us every day. We don't have to worry about it, right? Wouldn't that be great? Just facial recognition, roll gets called automatically, you know, just a little robot up here just saying, oh, they're here during this time frame, you know exactly when, who comes and who goes, and teachers don't have to call roll anymore. I just thought it was a great solution. And by the way, that could be done so easy. It just takes some company willing to invest the engineering time to do it because all the pieces are there. So yeah, so we just have a robot calling roll. I mean, you wouldn't even worry about it, it would just automatically be recorded and you wouldn't have to ever worry about it again. What a great idea, great business idea. So if you guys are into it, go for it. Okay, so we go, good, we're all present here. And that's kind of the topic of today is business. We're talking about business, we're talking about capitalism and so on. But first of all, let's get to the announcements. This is really important. I'm going to say this about 10 times. I've learned that if you don't say it at least 10 times, nobody here has heard it. Okay. By somewhere out on the 9th, somebody will say, hey, when's this assignment due? You know, and it's just going to happen. It just happens every semester. So we just keep repeating ourselves over and over again. So I apologize for those of you who already got this in your head, but let's go through it one more time. I kind of detailed a little bit more here from the last time. May 2nd, all research papers are due, and it's the final deadline, including all of your resubmissions from early turn-in. Everything has got to be done by then. 40 of you are done, don't have to worry about it. So I'm talking to 27 people here right now. And you 27, that's your deadline right there. You can do it. And you have one little break in that I will grade more on Wednesday. And I will wait till the end. I'll get everything else graded first, all the study guides, everything. I'll do these last, however many there are. Hopefully there'll be a bunch. And I still have, you know, I'll send you a little note. If you don't get full credit, you have until Saturday night, midnight, to even make fixes, but you better have it ready for me and into me by 3 o'clock on Wednesday if you have any chance of getting 2 resubmissions. If you got your first resubmission done and it's 300, you're fine. But what if you get to 290, right? Wouldn't that be a shame? So if you can get it to me by Wednesday, then you get one more crack at it if you get it in by Saturday. Now, the whole reason for doing this is to be extremely student friendly under these situations. The whole idea was to have the research paper completely done and out of the way for UVU finals week. Okay? So the whole schedule is built around that. 40 of you do not have to worry at all. You can focus on your finals. 27 of you still need to worry about it. But you know, that was the plan. Also, when we dropped the deadlines, right? It was so hilarious. We're in the 9th grade class, right? I had one 10th grader in there, and really smart. He'll be up here next year. I said, oh, by the way, for them, everything's due on the 8th, right? And I hear these gasps. What? That's next week. He just looked at me and says, you didn't see this coming? You know? And it's been interesting, not having deadlines. I've actually had better submission rates, right, than I did when I used to have deadlines. And then finally I tried to figure out why. Why is that the case? Why am I getting better submissions now with no deadlines than I got before? And I think it's simple. Yesterday it finally hit me. It's because we're at UCAS, y'all do all your work anyway. So how many of you are planning carefully to create as much time as you can for your finals week, and you're getting this stuff done out of the way? Raise your hands if you're planning. Wow, okay, great. There goes my theory. No, the truth is that you guys are smart, UCAS students, you're here for the academics, and it shouldn't surprise me. You don't need deadlines. You set your own, right? And so that's a real credit to you. Now, May 8th, all study guides are due. This is done on the 8th. Everybody clear? That's 21, 22, and 23. Those are the ones that still have, there's still one or two that haven't done earlier ones before the paper came in. They're like 6 weeks or 2 months old. But of those that are from this month and so on, 21, 22, 23, they all have to be in by the 8th at midnight, okay? And most of you have got those done too. I think nearly everybody here, 18 on this one. This one we have like 5 or 6. Well, I can't do that one yet because that's the State of the Union. I was thinking of world history. Okay, now here's the thing. Won't be accepted after the 8th for any of these. You're done. It's over. Semester's done. Why? Because the next week is UCAS finals, right? I will give you a little bit more time on the last one if you need it. And to review, the final one will drop even before all the lectures are given, so that those who have an A can plan, hey, I don't have to do this one. And I would imagine there's going to be 30 students. Half the students are not going to even have to bother with that last one. But for those that need the extra points to keep their grade up, I'll take it right up until the day before my final grades have got to be turned in. And so if I get it, that final one, but it won't be accepted after the 15th, it's too late. I used this example last time with you guys talking about these two students, and sure enough, they did exactly what I knew they were going to do. Both of them have finished 21, full credit. One missed 2 points on this one. But here's the thing, right? I should update this picture. They're both working on this one, and they're both going to do the State of the Union. And guess what? They're going to be 99 to 100%, and neither of them are going to have to worry about the last study guide. Right? These, by the way, this online students at home. These two are examples from that. So they're done, and that's pretty rewarding to see them do that. Okay, so what's tomorrow night? Did we talk about this? State of the Union. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. We did this, right? Yeah, you're confusing me because you come twice, right? Yeah, because you're sitting here. I remember we had a great discussion. That was fun. But listen, here's the thing, right? This is a must-do assignment. Why?
Does UVU require?
What category is it in? And if you do the math, the highest grade you can get without doing this assignment is an A-, because it's a category. And there's only like 60 points in there right now. I add 100 to it and you don't do it, then you've lost enough points to drop you down. You've got to do this one. This is the one essential assignment of any social science class. I'm talking about any political science class, any history class that doesn't require this is derelict in their duty, because it is the #1 most important speech of the year for any president. And that's true every single year. Now it's easy, it's simple. I'll put the study guide up tomorrow. It won't take much of your life, right? Keep it simple when you're doing the bulleted list. But last hour, coached me. They said, here's how you do this. You require at least 1 or 2 things from the beginning of the speech, 1 or 2 things from the middle of the speech, and 1 or 2 things from the end of the speech. Rather than say, just give me 10. Because what happens is people just, the first 10 things, and they quit, right? And they're out. So to make sure you listen to the whole speech, I'm going to just say, okay, give me the top 3 things from the first third of the speech. Give me the top 3 things from the middle third of the speech, and give me the top 10 things. Why we haven't done that for the last 15 years, I don't know. But then it's just a simple, for you guys, it's your strength opinion piece. It's an op-ed, opinion and editorial. And have some fun with it. It will not be long. I won't make this one long because the research paper, right? Long, so it won't be 500 words, for something like 300, I think is what I'm thinking about now. Don't quote me on that because I haven't made it yet, but I'll decide. All right, so with that being explained, let's now get to the regularly scheduled lecture. Now I'm pausing here just a little bit, and we may have actually covered this in class 2. And by the way, if you have other work to do, go for it. Don't feel like you got to listen twice, right? Just do what you got to do to keep your grades up, right? Who else is here? Comes every day, gets that massive joy. Okay, please budget your time for your own benefit. Okay. All right. Now listen. Here's the thing. So one of the questions on the study guide that people were missing is the United States a capitalist country? Are we? Absolutely, no doubt about it. Do we have elements of socialism?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. US military, firefighters, police, schools, public schools, 90% of them are public. So we are a capitalist society, no question. And we do a pretty good job of that, by the way. And oh, by the way, too, we apply socialism as we need it. Right? Every community does, because the thing is, sometimes capitalism does not provide everything that we need. It can't. Because what's the goal of capitalism? To make a profit. Now, are there things that need to be done in a society that aren't profitable? Give me examples. But they still need to be done. Yeah. I love your choice of that one, because at the time we started the space program, was there any company big enough, rich enough to be able to take that much risk? No, no. But as we prove the technology, now we're talking about 50 years later, are there companies that can do it? Yeah, Elon Musk and SpaceX, right? But without the initial research of NASA and the government making that happen and landing on the moon and all that, without that technology, nobody could have done that at the time, but the United States of America and Russia and big countries. And I don't know why China didn't jump in. I don't know why European Union didn't jump in. They have their own space programs, right? The European Union has their own. That's a brilliant example. It shows where the government, right, said, we're going to own the moon. All right. And then we're going to create these technologies. You know, by the way, Elon Musk will come along and he's going to do it on a private basis and it's going to work. Now, I don't think Elon's making money yet, but he will. How many of you would take a space flight if you had a chance? Where you'd go up, and I'd be in there in a heartbeat, right? I'm probably too old for it now, but I would love to get into the upper atmosphere and watch the sky turn completely black and get that feeling of weightlessness, right? And those are several private businesses doing that, right? Lovely example. Wow, that was a very good one. I'm going to actually change my lecture in the future and add that one to my list. Any others? Say again. Yeah, see, firefighting isn't expensive. Oh yeah. You got to have the equipment, you got to have the trained people and all of this. And the truth of the matter is, you only fight fire. Let's say forest fires. Let's just keep it to forest fires. Do you fight forest fires all year long? So you can't maintain a workforce and an equipment base unless you nationalize that in some way and provide funding, right, to fight it when there's a need. So that's a great example. I just don't think you could trust all over firefighting in any city or town and just leave it to a company and say, hey guys, why don't you put out all the fires in the city? You're going to have to follow up, make sure they're going to do a good job. And maybe there's a fire company that could do it in a local area, but it's not going to work for most communities. It just won't.
The first
It's expensive.
First known firefighting was private in Rome.
Was where?
Was private and it was in Rome.
Interesting.
Ancient Rome.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
Lord of the
I remember
Rome
that.
would always say, I can save your house, but first you have to let me buy it.
That's exactly right. I'd forgotten that. Yeah, Rome had people that would put your fire out for a fee.
Then eventually they nationalized it.
Yeah. No, I love that one. That's a great example, actually. Way to go, Rome. All right, so let's talk about capitalism now. If we live in a capitalist society, but there's times we do socialist things in order to kind of, make things happen, make things work. Let's take a look now. What are the elements of capitalism? What are the 5, 6 key things that make capitalism capitalism? What's number one?
Competition.
Okay, I'm going to put that down here. I'm going to put it down here later, but it's absolutely true. Let's do competition. And I'm putting it down there for a reason because I want to talk about it at the end. Okay, so competition, definitely. You have competition between, different groups making different products and selling, right? Okay, so that's important. What else? What do you need? Oh, is there a 3? There you go. Thank you. That would have been awkward. Get the 3, there's no 3.
You need some form of currency or something to trade with.
A means of trade.
Yeah.
I love how you phrase that. The means of trade is what? Capital. Capital is money and things that money you have to buy with money to make the product. So it's a capital is you take the money and you buy like a factory, plant equipment in the factory, and you buy employees. So that becomes part of your capital. So you buy employees, you buy robots, you buy whatever you need, but it takes what? Capital, which is basically what? Right? Okay, who gives you the money, Mr. Capitalist?
People.
People buy your products.
Yeah.
So on a free market, you get to sell at a market, and that's what leads to competition, right? And you make money based on supply of your product. How much do you have to sell? And the demand for it. You can make a great product, nobody wants it, no profit, right? But who gives you your initial capital, and who gives your buyers the capital, and who gives everybody the capital to play the game? Or does money just grow on trees? Where does money come from? Government. It's part of the infrastructure. You have to have infrastructure to encourage business activity. So one of the most important things is a money supply. So Congress created the Federal Reserve, which is a national bank, right? The Fed. And it supplies banks and with people so they have the capital to buy things. Now they recoup some of that in the form of taxes, right? To pay government expenses. But you have no capitalism without the socialism part. If you didn't have a country making the money, you have no money to exchange. Therefore, there is no what? Capitalism. What is the currency used in Europe?
Euro.
The euro. What is the one used in China? You want what's the renminbi don or something like that? I can't even say it anymore. The yuan in Japan. Everybody has a currency. Europe's got 27 countries has the euro, which by the way is a great currency. Which one is the dominant currency in the world?
Americans.
It's still the US dollar. But what if it becomes China's currency? Does that help us or hurt us as a country?
Probably hurts us.
It doesn't that bode well. The country that has the dominant currency that everybody wants to exchange in internationally has a huge advantage. And we still control that huge advantage. Let's hope we can hold on to it as long as possible. But the point is, it doesn't matter. If this currency isn't that great, people will use this currency. If this one isn't that great, they'll use the euro. Whatever is the best currency, that's the one that will dominate. And that's what will fund capitalism. Now, here's the other thing with capitalism. Is it local or international? It's international, isn't it? If you scale up, I don't know any company that gets to a certain scale that can make enough money to keep growing with just your domestic US market. If you're a Canadian company, you bought to sell your products in other places. They only have 20 million, 30 million people. And so any company worth its salt has got to grow to international boundaries, which means what? They're no longer an American company or a Canadian company. They might have an office there. Little company I work for, right? Help to start. We have 100 countries now. 100. Because the US market is only so big for our product line. So we have to, there's a great company, Newscan, I think it's called, here in Provo, right? International, where's the biggest market? Where do they make most of their money? Based right here in Provo. Great company. Asia. All their cosmetics, that's the biggest market. Japan is huge. China's huge. They make all this money internationally. There's not that much demand here for that company. So they have to sell internationally. So that's why you have to have exchanges. We exchange currencies and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very complicated banking system that's worldwide. All right, let's keep going. So you have to have capital that comes from governments. Right? You have to have a free market, which is basically a place to exchange, right? You take your products, you have a certain supply, the demand, right? You're going to see this in your economics classes. It's called the supply and demand curve. It's really annoying. And by the way, it's lame, but nevertheless, they're still going to teach it to you again. So basically, here's the supply, and the demand is somewhere here. And if the demand's here, that's your price point. You can increase demand by lowering your prices. Maybe somebody will buy a little bit more if you lower your prices. If you raise your price, you're probably going to sell a bit less. But you can only make so much. There's what we call the equilibrium price right there. And that is determined by the market. It's a supply and demand situation. Okay, so you have a market determines the price of your product. So you think I'm going to spend $100 making this product, and you find out that nobody's willing to pay more than $1.10, you're in real hurt. And it's based on competition. Anything else that we should add that creates a capitalist system? You're missing a big one. Private ownership. Right? Right? That's a big one, right? Okay, now we're just going to do 6 years. Competition is 6. So we have competition. Okay, so let's take competition. If you're a company, you're a private company, another company is in your same market, maybe they're owned by stockholders and have a board of directors, but that's still private ownership, right? They're an LLC corp. And you're a small business. By the way, what's the definition of small business? What by definition in the United States is a small business? You say, oh, we need 59, I think it's 59 million people in the United States are employed by small businesses. So what's the definition?
I don't know the definition.
Oh, I thought what is it?
Is it like there's the person who has most of the stocks, like at least 50% of the shareholders?
No, it's 500 employees or less.
Oh.
It's simple. And there's lots of tax breaks if you're a small business in America because we want to encourage it because they hire so many people. So listen, can any business in the United States survive, say a small business of say 499 people? Can they survive without roads to get their people to and from, to get their product to and from? Can they survive without an electrical grid? Can they survive without the internet? Right? Backbone. By the way, the United States still pays for the backbone. You know that, right? Okay, so all of this, a sewage system, you want sewers, you want trash collection. Businesses are just like homes. In order to make this work, to have an office, say, for example, here in Orem, you got to have good electricity, you have to have great internet, you have to have trash collection, you have to have roads to and from. And by the way, this infrastructure, the company's not paying for it. It's paid for by the taxpayers, right? Now, why would taxpayers in the United States want to pay for all those things? To create a good climate for business. How many of you have ever seen industrial parks that cities build? They take a whole section and they open it up and they pave the roads, they do some nice landscaping, and they move businesses into their community. We could use Lehigh, or we could also use Spanish Fork. Let's use Spanish Fork. How many businesses have gone into that region of Spanish Fork in just the last 2 years?
That's crazy.
It is crazy. And how did they get it? Why didn't it happen in Springville? And I know exactly why. Why did they win and Springville lose? They gave tax breaks, local tax breaks to Costco. They got Costco in, and when Costco went in, all these other businesses said, hey, this is the place. This is where people are going to come. This is where all the people are going to come. Boom, and it just exploded. Their city planners did that. Their city commission did that. They created a basically business paradise down there, but they gave a lot of tax breaks. Lehigh did the same thing. That's why American Fork didn't get any, because they got beat in the competition between cities that used their socialism to provide incentives to bring businesses in, built the infrastructure, gave them what they needed to succeed. And then guess what? Over time, are they going to get that tax money back? You bet they are. They are going to, 20 years from now, they're still going to be. When the tax breaks go away, because they only last for like a decade or so, then they're going to be sit and sweet, and the people in Spanish Fork are going to be paying less taxes because the businesses will be there thriving. They just out chest played everybody else in the south of the valley. Oh, by the way, they have one advantage too. They have a highway coming this way, and they got a freeway coming like this. And they said, right there at the intersection, we're going to do, oh, we're going to build a nice park there too. We're going to make it inviting. And cities like Springville got left in the dust. We got a Smith's food chain. We're never going to recover from that because Spanish Fork created a better environment and a better infrastructure for businesses. But the city government did that. So infrastructure is the responsibility of our community and our government in order to encourage what? Small businesses. It's brilliant. It's wonderful. It's a fantastic system. But if a country doesn't compete, they lose out. Oh, the United States and China creates the infrastructure to make sure their businesses and their factories succeed because they're playing the long game. They're putting high-speed trains everywhere, high-speed freeways, high-speed communications, high-speed internet, the best electrical grid you can have. China's putting that in place so when they put a factory in place, it can be productive. They have 20 cities as big as our largest city. Because they're doing what? The necessary work of infrastructure. All right, so can you have a purely 100% capitalist country? No, not and be competitive. Imagine this. Imagine no rules for any businesses whatsoever. All pure capitalism, no government oversight.
Blow up enemy's buildings.
What you're talking about is anarchy. And the drug trade, the drug business is exactly that. No rules, no boundaries, no borders, nobody looking over their shoulder. For example, don't you love the FDA that checked into the J&J vaccine and made sure it was safe and put a warning on it and says, hey, it might not be safe for you? Would a drug company, would a gang of thieves and murderers who run drug cartels, would they do that?
No.
And so a lot of the drugs simply are planned to create excessive addiction or whatever, so they keep their customers coming back. But this does not create a healthy capitalism, does it? So capitalism needs some rules around it. And where did the rules come from? Congress. One of the rules was the Sherman Antitrust Act. So one thing you're going to have to remember from this lecture. Okay, make sure when Cameron gets back in, you tell him, hey, don't forget the Sherman Antitrust Act. Let's take a look at this. If you're a good business and you're just good at what you do, what's your goal? What's the goal of any business?
Money.
To make as much money as possible. What if you have competitors?
Beat the competition.
Destroy them.
The king of certain oil.
And I use the word destroy specifically. Do you realize how cutthroat the software industry is? They're to win. I know our company, for example, we know our top 5 competitors and we know where they're vulnerable and we know how to hit them and we want to basically beat them, and we have them. We beat them. We beat them in sales, we beat them in marketing, we bring them an approach. We went after markets they didn't dare go after. And oh, by the way, now we're in a position that if any of those companies starts to become a little too feisty, we can buy them out. Buy your competition out. Be a little startup. It's got some great technology. It rivals your own. Whoa, this little startup. Give them $100 million. Buy it. Integrate it into your company. Get their copyrights before they become the next Microsoft. Facebook did that. There was a competitor out there. They were worried about the competition. They didn't let that company thrive and take them on head to head. They bought them out and destroyed it.
You keep.
Let's take
reminding
examples.
of
Give me
profitability.
examples in history where competition has led to basically one company dominating. Because here's the other thing. Here's number 7. Survival of the fittest. So if your company's more fit than another, right? And you beat them in supply, demand, free market, advertising, all that kind of stuff. You beat them, you can become a what? Which is anti-capitalism. Because a monopoly, by definition, does not play by the rules of a market. The idea of competition is that people are going to have new ideas and they're going to have a location and they're going to have all these kinds of things going for them. But if you destroy the competition, you can charge whatever you want. And the price is not determined by supply and demand and a free market. So monopoly kills capital. And that's ironic that the most successful capitalist business will destroy its competition and therefore end capitalism in that market. Unless there are rules. I'll give you some examples of where that actually happened in America. What's that?
Rockefeller.
Yeah. Rockefeller's probably case number 1, right? Let's do Rockefeller. John D. What did he do? He had this factory right next to where the production was happening, and he created so much money, he was able then to buy out all of his competition. So he controlled, I don't know how much it was, but at least 95% of all the oil and production in America, all the way to the consumer. So he owned the oil wells, he owned the production facilities, he owned the distribution, and he also owned the customer end of it. So what happened to the price of gas?
Skyrocket.
He determined what the price was. It wasn't the market determining. It was how much do I need in order to continue this project I'm on. So guess what? Along comes the Sherman Antitrust Act, passed in the late 1800s, and said, John D, no, not going to happen. What we're going to do is we're going to break your Standard Oil of Ohio company up into basically every state's going to get a different company, and they're going to, just like this, we're going to chop them up little pieces. By the way, you should know the way this was done, he actually made more money at the end than he did before, the way it was structured. So don't feel bad for John D. John D made more money once they split it up. But here's the deal. Now, how many gas stations are there?
A lot.
When you go buy gas, what are your choices? Why do you go to one station versus another? Price. What else though?
One station serves better food than the other.
Yeah, one has better goodies, right? So there's other ways to get your customers to come to this. So you may pay more for gas or less for gas if they can get you in to buy the goodies, because the goodies are marked up really high. So you save 2 cents a gallon on gas, but pay a 30, 40 extra % profit margin than you would if you bought the same goodies from Smith's. So they're basically sucking you in with low prices to get to sell the goodies. Maverick is a master at it.
Yes.
And then it's location. Some locations are just convenient. And oh, by the way, how many different companies do you see right down the road? You got Chevron, you got Shell, you've got Sinclair, you've got Holiday Oil. All this is available, and there's great competition, lots of choice. One of the other things that you have with capitalism, hopefully if it's working right, is choice. So if you take the choice away, now the idea is, does this lower prices and increase quality? Does it? Yeah. If you find somebody selling inferior gas, you're going to go back? They used to put water in gas, you know, that water down. Literally. When you found out they were doing that, that hurt your car. You don't go back. If they give you bad service, if the goodies somehow are not fresh, you're not going back. So it lowers prices, increases quality. That's kind of the whole point of capitalism. Is hopefully, if it's working well, that's what it's doing. Now, how many of you have a smartphone? Raise your hand. Okay, well, here's one. Imagine a world where you have one phone company. It was AT&T. Now, why would the government give a monopoly to a phone company in the 1920s? What's that?
Right.
Maybe. Actually, that might have been true. I'm not gonna say that isn't true. I haven't looked into it. Let me give you another example before we launch into this one. Let's talk about REA. Okay, the Rural Electrification Agency. Your private company, JP Morgan, created a company called, General what? General Electric. He had the money to do it. And
He also
he's
made-
producing electricity at Niagara Falls.
He bought out Carnegie Steel, made a single united.
He did, and he bought a bunch of other companies too and built it into one big company, right? But he
Yeah.
also did General Electric. Now, General Electric, that's how rich he was, that's how able he was getting capital together.
Howard John D. Rockefeller controlled the entire country's oil supply and therefore
That's right,
gasoline
and his
supply.
buddy controlled the tire supply for all the cars made by his other buddy Ford. So they were all in it together. But anyway, but let's move on. Let's take electricity. What was the first city then to get that electricity from General Electric?
New York.
New York. Why? So many customers, population density. You could run one line down and do 50 apartments at one block. All right, so city after city got electrified. Now, what about little Provo here? Provo was a really small, scant town at the time. Was anybody going to come out and build them a power plant? So they did it themselves. So a little socialist answer there. Spanish Fork did the same thing. They're still doing it. They're buying windmills. They're buying solar panels. Why? To keep the price of electricity down, so they don't have, they have an alternative to the grid, right? I mean, Texas is known for it's the oil state, but it has more windmills than any other state. There's entire towns in the oil country where on the farm they're pumping oil, but the community has banded together and put in a socialist, basically windmill and solar farm, so that all the residents get really cheap electricity forever. So communities sometimes have to act on their own. Well, here's the deal. Over time, if they branch to most major towns and whatever, if you have a population, well, what about that farm 10 miles out of town that produces turkeys for Thanksgiving out in Sanpete County? Who's going to run an electric line to them? Is there any profit in it?
Only if
The
they land.
cost of the line could never be repaid by 100 years of their fees, unless you charge them $100 a kilowatt hour. So along comes Franklin Roosevelt in the New Deal, looking for ways to put people to work. And he said, we're going to take a bunch of money and we're going to run electricity to every farm in America. By the way, they did get it done until the 1950s. But what is the advantage to the capitalist side of our economy by running electricity to every little farm in America?
Provides jobs,
Jobs, and then what?
future infrastructure.
Does that farm become more productive?
Yes.
Of course. And so it contributes more, and all farmers are private businessmen, and their business does better. You can't keep those turkeys up in Sanpete County without the warm sheds in the winter, and you need that electricity for the plant that does all the processing. The point of the matter is, without the REA, those communities would have dried up because they simply didn't have the infrastructure. So the government paid for the infrastructure, but guess what? The farmers benefited, and we all benefited because we got more turkeys for Thanksgiving at a cheaper price. It's kind of tied together. It's not that one's bad or the other one's good. It's where do you decide to put your emphasis? If it means getting more rural air. Oh, by the way, Biden is doing the same thing with high-speed internet. High-speed internet, right? Broadband. Are there communities that don't have it yet? If you want to work from home and you decide, hey, I'm tired of the hustle and bustle of New York City, I want to move out to rural New York, but they don't have high-speed internet out there yet. Can you go? Your Zoom meetings will be faulty, all sorts of bad things will happen, you can't do it. But if you can get high-speed internet out those rural communities, people can go and work from there. It's the next part, it's the next phase of the REA, is broadband to everybody. The TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, brought electricity to the poorest part of our country, the Appalachian Mountains. Poorest people in America got electricity because we built a bunch of dams and reservoirs and we gave basically electricity for life. And guess what? Now it's thriving. So let's take AT&T now as an example, all right? AT&T was given a monopoly because guess what? Who can afford to string all these lines? So they guaranteed them a certain profit. And once the phone system, by the way, was all wires in those days, once it was established, then they set the rates. And if you were within 5 miles, it was one cost, 20 miles, it was another, 100 miles, it was another. If it was 40, it was unreal. The rates were insane and they were illogical. If you make a call from here to here, there's no difference in cost. But they created perceived distance and cost and charged you more just because you're calling somebody 100 miles away. Electricity goes a long ways without increasing cost, by the way. It was maddening. So guess what? Along comes the Sherman Antitrust Act. And they said, you know what? We've given you a monopoly and you did a great job. But now let's break you up into baby bells. This was called Ma Bell. That was its nickname. And they developed all these little companies. So they had one in California, they had one here, they had all these little baby bells. Then they said, anybody else want to enter this market, do it. And MCI did. And then guess what? From that point on, all these little companies started out to provide wireless. How many do you have T-Mobile? How many do you have Verizon? How many do you have Sprint? How many do you have Cricket? How many do you have Boost? How many have one that I haven't mentioned yet? Right? Who are your provider? Do you get choice? You know the only reason you get choice? AT&T is still out there, by the way. That's still a choice. Everybody got AT&T? It's a good service. Yeah, AT&T is good service. How many are there? There's dozens of choices now. And what if you feel like, hey, wait a minute, T-Mobile's charging me too much. What can you do tomorrow because of another law that was passed? Can you switch and keep your phone number? They used to prevent you from switching because they took your phone number away. Had to give a new unique phone. Now they're saying your phone number is yours. You can take it anywhere you want. Right now, I'm feeling T-Mobile's charging me too much because I bought in years ago. It's been a good service, but guess what? I'm going to switch to Verizon, save about 60 bucks a month. Try it for a year. Don't like it. I'm going to switch back to T-Mobile and I'm going to pay $60 less than I'm paying now. You have choice. You have competition because we broke up the monopoly. And the only people who can break up the monopoly is the country. Countries have to do that. Europe has basically said Microsoft was a monopoly and Google's a monopoly, and they have to diversify their business to create more competition. We haven't done that yet, but Google's a monopoly and it should be broken up. Says former Google employee. It is, it's a monopoly and it needs to be broken up. We need to have more competition. How many of you have ever tried DuckDuckGo? You ever done that one? It's a good one, isn't it? But they can't grow while Microsoft is so dominant in the market. So Google makes all the money on advertising. Give me examples of countries that do capitalism really well. China. Who else does capitalism really well? We do. We do it really, really well. Who else?
I want to say Russia is agree, but
I was just going to add this question. Who does it really, really poorly? And Russia is the prime example. They're allowing a group of plutocrats to control monopolies in each of those industries, and the money's all flowing across, so you don't get the price control, you don't get the competition, you don't get multiple companies trying to compete. Their monopolistic oligarchy is just destroying the capitalism of that country. Who does it right? Norway, England, Canada, Mexico, right?
however, I would say that America still does capitalism better than all of Europe.
What's your evidence of that?
Well,
What city is the financial center of the world? So therefore, by definition, probably does that side of capitalism the best.
New York.
London. I always thought it was New York. It's
Yeah,
still
World
London.
Trade Center.
London's taking it back. Because they're international in their approach. More than we are. And so it's great. It's great for London since, you know, my wife's English and grew up in London. That's what keeps them going. If they're the financial center, that gives them a heck of an advantage. And England has its own currency, the pound, They deal in American dollars and euros too. They're right there on the continent. London is the financial center, as of what I heard just the other day. But socialism and capitalism, I should get a big slide up, is just a choice that you make as a country. Our choice is kind of to lean this way, right? But Norway wants to lean this way. Canada leans this way. Mexico probably leans a little bit more this way, with the exception of their oil company. They nationalize their oil so they can have a constant source of revenue. Russia, maybe a bit too much. Tunisia, same way. Tunisia drove itself off a cliff because a small family controlled all the capitalist enterprises in there, and there wasn't room for anybody else. And by the way, are you a capitalist?
Yeah.
What do you have to be a capitalist? You have to have the capital to be one. Most of you live in a capitalist society, but you're not capitalists. Because to be a capitalist, you have to own the business. How many people own your own business? Not a capitalist. You don't. Very few. Very few. So take a small business, one owner, 500 employees. Huh? Those 500 employees work for the capitalists. I'm not saying it's bad. Every capitalist owner I know is awesome and does a great job and they're generous and right. They have so much money they can't do anything else with it to give it away. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But you're not a capitalist unless you own the what? Then you can invest in capitalism. So you're not a capitalist, say a capitalist, you have money. But you live in a capitalist society, that's different than being an actual capitalist. How many people are Elon Musk? He's a capitalist. Jeff Bezos, capitalist. Bill Gates, capitalist. And they can invest in any businesses they want. They can see startups and all that kind of stuff. Your goal, I would think, is to become one. What's stopping you?
We lack the
Lack
money.
of capital. So how do you get it?
Education.
I can give you a little bit, you can start, but chances are you're gonna have to take on investors. You're gonna have to maybe borrow from banks, right? So if you want to be a capitalist and start a small business, if you want that huge income that comes with it, you gotta do what? Whatever degree you get a hard science degree, and then supplement it with a business line. Definitely take it down. Because no business I've ever known made it without a good account. Because you spend more than you think you have, and suddenly you find yourself in debt, and your profit margin is in your 20-30% that you have to have. And if you're not keeping track of every dollar. So take accounting classes if you're going to be a capitalist, but get a hard science degree. If you're an engineer, oh, wait a minute. Hey, Larry and Sergey started Google, right? Graduate students in engineering. Now, they didn't have a brain between them when it came to money. Somebody gave them $100,000. So, yeah, go ahead and start it. Oh, by the way, that means I own half the stock plus, They started this thing, made themselves multi-billionaires, yes, but guess what? They had to bring in somebody who understood the financial side. That was Eric Schmidt. And it was Eric Schmidt. He had a business here in Utah. And he ran some other companies in Silicon Valley. And when he took on Google as a project, a small project, he had no idea what he had there. These engineers, both didn't have the accounting background that he had. Does that make sense? So if you're plotting your career to become a good capitalist, people, get the education you need to do it right. Now, have there been people who've never graduated from college that gone from brilliant capitalists?
Yes.
Name one. You don't necessarily need it before you got a lot going on up here. Who's the most famous non-graduate? Bill Gates. Did he graduate Harvard? No. He was too busy playing with the little computers to go to class. And when the timing came, he saw it, he saw the wave coming, he jumped out, got with a buddy, and they started Microsoft. So you don't necessarily need it, but I'm telling you, since you're here already, get the hard science degree. Learn to have, look, if you don't have a background in biology, company to make the next vaccine? 2 Turkish refugees moving to Germany created BioNTech, and BioNTech was the one that figured the vaccine out, and Pfizer bought it. Pfizer is just the manufacturer and distributor, big worldwide company to make huge profits on it. But this little entrepreneurial company, hard biology science, but they had the wherewithal to get a big partner, and boom, the rest is history. One of the most miracle drugs ever produced. Small company, big company buys them out, basically. If they did their business right and they didn't plan, they basically said, how much is this worth to you, Pfizer? And they're probably worth $200-300 million each right now with stock in Pfizer that will make them billionaires in the next 10 years. If they want to be a true capitalist, that's what you got to do. But you might just want to be the pure scientist working in lab, which is totally great. But you're going to be working for a capitalist, you're going to be working for a government, you're going to be working for the government doing research, or you're going to be working for a company doing research. But you're not going to be a capitalist creating a business only.
Carnegie was never went to college.
Carnegie was insanely wealthy. The fortunes keep compounding, right? Rockefeller's fortune keeps compounding. And so he wanted to leave it all to charity, but he couldn't do it in his lifetime. So his son managed to do it. The very few of the descendants got much. They got like a few million each, maybe at most. But it grows to this big, huge foundation that is still delivering an amazing amount of good throughout the world. And that was really awesome. It's one of the great untold stories of Rockefeller about that. Whereas Vanderbilt was richer than Rockefeller for a long time. But he just gave all of his money to his children, and within one generation, nobody had any money left. By the time they get to the 3rd generation, they'd squandered it all. All the Rockefeller kids, while given just a little bit, managed to turn it into a very nice life for them and their families. But the Vanderbilt kids, 2 generations later, it's all gone. And he didn't give any money away. Carnegie gave it all away. He built 22,000 libraries around the world, free. He built libraries in rural towns, rural small communities, just built them all over the world. There's like 30 that were built in Utah with Carnegie money. All the community, the little town had to do was provide the librarian and the books, and he would build you the building. But he made sure you put something in there too, so you didn't walk away from that. I'm giving you a nice building, now you make sure it works. Well,
Carnegie.
the libraries he built were the internet of the day, because it's the only place you could go to in a small town and get the newspapers from New York City and from whatever, and get any book you wanted through a book exchange program that allowed you to read anything you wanted. It brought education to the world. It was insane. But Carnegie did a lot of good. Now, was he a terrible business owner and mean to his employees?
Yes.
He was ruthless.
1 out of 11 steel workers, and his big industry was steel.
Yeah.
1 out of 11 steel workers 1 year died.
Yeah, no.
And he had thousands.
Anyway, fun discussion. You guys go out and pursue the capitalist dream. But remember, you also need a government that's going to support you and help you get there. So just saying.
Yeah. Carnegie was steel. Rockefeller was oil.
Hang on 1 second. Go ahead.
So for my paper that I just gave you,
Yeah.
like this week,